History remembers the conquerors. Alexander crossing into Asia, Caesar marching into Rome, Napoleon crowning himself emperor. Their victories reshaped civilizations. Their defeats redrew the maps of the world. But behind the shimmering gold of their triumphs lay something far less visible, an internal battle waged long before the battlefield. What is it that compels a man to risk everything for glory? What steadies his hand when others falter? What blinds him with ambition, yet keeps him sharp enough to grasp power before it slips away? We imagine the battlefield as swords clashing, armies colliding, empires rising and falling. But the first battlefield is always the mind. A general who cannot control his fear, a king who cannot master his desire, a leader who cannot restrain his ego. Such figures are doomed long before their enemies strike. The true empire, the only one you can never escape, is the empire of your own mind. And history has shown again and again that those who fail to rule it end up ruled by others. Machiavelli knew this truth. While the world remembers him as the dark prince of politics, the manipulator of kings, his insight cuts deeper. He understood that mastery of the world begins with mastery of the self, that to bend nations, to survive betrayal, to thrive in a world of wolves, you must first chain the chaos within. So ask yourself, what if the greatest war you will ever fight is the one you cannot see? The invisible war within your own mind. To understand Machiavelli, you must first step into his world. Renaissance Italy was no land of stability or peace. It was a chessboard of betrayal. City-states rose and fell with alarming speed. Florence, Milan, Venice, and Rome each plotted in shadows, trading loyalty for advantage. Mercenary armies fought not for honor, but for whoever could pay them more. Assassinations unfolded behind closed doors, and alliances were written in ink, only to be torn apart in blood. It was in this turbulent storm that Machiavelli lived and wrote. He was no detached philosopher, scribbling in comfort from afar. He was thrust into the center of power, a diplomat who watched kings and popes gamble with lives as if the world were their board game. He witnessed Florence swing between republican freedom and tyrannical rule, between hope and despair. Each betrayal, each collapse was a brutal reminder. Survival was never promised, and from this chaos came the prince. Often misunderstood as a cynical manual for tyranny, it was something deeper, a mirror held up to human nature. Machiavelli was not inventing cruelty or manipulation. He was revealing it, stripping away illusions about morality and exposing the raw psychology of power. He showed rulers that the true enemy was not just rivals or conspirators. It was weakness. Weakness of will, weakness of discipline, weakness of mind. For Machiavelli, the lesson was ruthless but undeniable. If you cannot command yourself, others will command you. If you cannot master your own fear, desire, and indecision, you will be bent, used, discarded. His advice to princes was the same advice one might give to anyone who seeks freedom. Learn to rule yourself, or prepare to be ruled by others. This was not merely political wisdom, it was psychological survival. Machiavelli's genius was not simply that he studied rulers, it was that he studied people. Beneath the crowns and thrones, he saw the same fragile psychology that governs every human life. At the core, he believed three forces command us: desire, fear, and illusion. Desire is the fire that pulls us forward. It makes kings dream of conquest, merchants chase wealth, and lovers risk everything for a fleeting moment of passion. Desire fuels progress, but it also enslaves. For the man who cannot govern his hunger is no different from the addict, the gambler, or the tyrant consumed by greed. He becomes a servant to his own longing, blind to anything else. Fear, on the other hand, is the chain that holds us back. Rulers fear rebellion, citizens fear poverty, thinkers fear ridicule. Fear restrains, disciplines, and in some cases protects. Yet when it dominates, it paralyzes. A prince too afraid to act loses his throne. A person too afraid to speak loses their voice. Fear, left unchecked, robs life of its vitality. And then there are illusions, the most dangerous force of all. The illusion that we are in control when we are not. The illusion that people are more virtuous than they are. The illusion that tomorrow will unfold as neatly as we plan. These illusions comfort us, but they also deceive us. They make us fragile, unprepared for the chaos of reality. Machiavelli warned that rulers who live in illusions will be destroyed by reality, and so too will individuals who cling to fantasies of certainty. Here lies the uncomfortable truth. Nations rise and fall by the same currents that move within each of us. A citizen enslaved by desire is no freer than a king enslaved by greed. A man paralyzed by fear is as powerless as a dethroned ruler. The battlefield of politics is only a reflection of the battlefield within. We live in a world obsessed with control. Control over careers, over wealth, over status. From the time we are children, we are told that success lies in bending the external world to our will. Climb the ladder, earn the applause, accumulate more, appear stronger, richer, more important. And yet, beneath all this striving, most people remain powerless, not because they lack external achievements, but because they have never mastered themselves. Machiavelli saw this paradox clearly. In his cold, unsentimental view of power, the man who cannot govern his own mind becomes the easiest prey. If you are ruled by desire, the merchant can sell you anything. If you are ruled by fear, the politician can control your vote. If you are lost in illusion, the propagandist can write your reality. The external world does not need to conquer you with armies, it only needs to conquer your psychology. And today, this truth is more visible than ever. Social media algorithms study our weaknesses and exploit them, feeding us endless desires, endless fears, endless illusions. Political rhetoric manipulates our anxieties, pitting us against each other while quietly consolidating power. Consumer culture convinces us that happiness is just one more purchase away, while corporations profit from our restless dissatisfaction. These are the new princes. Princes not of bloodlines and crowns, but of data, narratives, and influence. Most people spend their lives building castles in the world outside, yet their inner kingdoms remain in ruins. They believe they are free, because they can choose what to buy, who to follow, or which candidate to support. But freedom without inner mastery is an illusion. In reality, they are subjects, obedient, predictable, ruled not by kings, but by impulses they never learned to control. Machiavelli's ruthless honesty unmasks this hidden empire. If you cannot master your mind, the world will master it for you. For all his cynicism, Machiavelli hinted at a truth that many overlook. Power does not begin in the palace, but in the mind. The true act of cunning is not merely deceiving others, but disciplining the chaos within. It is the ability to channel desire rather than be consumed by it, to command fear rather than collapse under it, and to pierce illusion rather than live comfortably inside it. This mastery is deceptively simple in idea, but difficult in practice. It is the realization that before one can command armies, businesses, or movements, one must first command the restless forces inside. History is full of leaders who demonstrate this. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, who ruled Rome not by indulging every passion, but by mastering them. In the midst of war, plague, and betrayal, he turned inward, writing meditations not on how to conquer provinces, but on how to conquer anger, despair, and the longing for praise. His empire was vast, but the empire he built within himself was greater. Even in modern times, the same principle applies. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in a prison cell, robbed of freedom, stripped of power. By all external measures, he was conquered. Yet in that cell, he achieved something far greater than control of a nation. He achieved mastery of himself. When he finally walked free, he was not ruled by bitterness, rage, or vengeance. He was a man who had ruled his mind, and because of this, he could rule with wisdom rather than tyranny. This is the simple change Machiavelli forces us to see, the shift from chasing the world to mastering the self. For the one who rules his own mind cannot be enslaved by manipulation, propaganda, or fear. This is not just self-help rhetoric, it is the foundation of true power. Liberation does not come from conquering nations, or winning elections, or gaining status. Liberation comes the moment you realize that the world can take everything from you, your wealth, your reputation, even your freedom, but it cannot conquer a mind that has mastered itself. If Machiavelli walked among us today, he would find that the palaces of power have shifted. The princes of the modern world do not wear crowns or command armies. They run corporations, manage platforms, and shape algorithms. Their battlefields are not the bloody streets of Renaissance Italy, but the glowing screens in our pockets. Their currency is not gold or land, it is attention. Every notification, every headline, every advertisement is designed with precision to bypass your reason and hijack your desires and fears. Social media platforms employ armies of psychologists and behavioral scientists, not to liberate the mind, but to capture it. They know the brain's vulnerabilities, the dopamine rush from a like, the anxiety of missing out, the craving for validation. With each swipe, the mind becomes a little less its own master and a little more the subject of unseen rulers. This is not paranoia, it is documented science. Researchers have shown how variable reward systems, the same mechanics used in slot machines, are embedded into social feeds to keep us hooked. Studies on dopamine pathways reveal how every red notification bubble sparks the brain's reward circuitry, compelling us to click. What once was the battlefield of Florence, where intrigue and betrayal decided the fate of kingdoms, is now the battlefield of the human nervous system. And the cost is not a crown, but your autonomy. Governments, too, have adapted to this new terrain. Political rhetoric is engineered to trigger fear and outrage, because fear is the quickest path to obedience and outrage the surest way to loyalty. Influence no longer requires the brutality of swords, it requires the subtle mastery of psychology. The old princes ruled bodies, the new princes rule attention, and so the question becomes inescapable. Who is ruling your mind right now, you or the system around you? Is your ambition truly your own? Or is it shaped by ads whispering what to buy, influencers telling you what to desire, politicians declaring what to fear? The tools of control have grown more sophisticated, but the principle remains Machiavelli's. The one who cannot govern his own mind will inevitably be governed by someone else. What does it mean to master the mind? It is not the silencing of desire, nor the elimination of fear, nor the denial of illusion. It is the reordering of these forces, the transformation of chaos into order. To rule the mind is to become sovereign over one's own inner kingdom, a prince not of lands or subjects, but of thought and emotion. When mastery begins, confidence no longer rests on fragile illusions of control. It arises from clarity. You recognize desire, but you do not become its slave. You feel fear, but it no longer dictates your choices. You see through illusion, not as someone who rejects the world, but as one who pierces its disguises. This clarity transforms decision-making. Choices are not reactive stabs in the dark, but deliberate movements of strategy, guided by a higher aim. Imagine the difference. The same situation that once stirred anxiety now meets a calm, measured presence. Where others collapse under setbacks, the ruler of the self studies the terrain, adapts, and presses forward with precision. No longer dragged by impulse, no longer clouded by panic, the self becomes a strategist of its own destiny. In this state, life is not a series of accidents. It becomes a deliberate act of creation. This transformation echoes the greatest rulers of history, not in their conquest of nations, but in their unshakable presence. Consider leaders who stood calm in chaos, philosophers who faced death without fear, revolutionaries who resisted immense pressure without surrendering their integrity. Their power did not begin in the external world. It was born from the mastery of their own minds. And when this mastery is achieved, manipulation loses its grip. Propaganda may still shout, algorithms may still lure, desires may still whisper, but they cannot dictate the ruler who commands from within. This is true freedom, not the absence of chains in the world outside, but the unbreakable sovereignty of the world within. To become the prince of your own mind is not to escape the storms of existence, but to stand within them untouched. It is to rule calmly in chaos, strategically in conflict, deliberately in uncertainty. It is to transform life itself into an empire of intention, where every thought and every emotion serves a higher purpose, your own chosen destiny. The battlefield. 'Tis quiet now. The smoke clears. The ruins of kingdoms, once mighty and untouchable, lie scattered across the soil of history. Thrones sit empty, crowns rust in forgotten tombs, and the names of rulers echo faintly in the dust of time. The lesson is unmistakable. Wealth fades, power shifts, empires fall. What endures is not the crown of gold upon the head of kings, but the crown forged within, the sovereignty of the mind. Machiavelli's harsh wisdom was never only about politics. It was a mirror held up to human nature. He revealed that to rule others without first ruling oneself is to build an empire of sand. Desire will erode it. Fear will collapse it. Illusion will scatter it in the wind. But the ruler who begins with the mastery of their own mind is untouchable. They carry a kingdom within them that cannot be stolen, invaded, or overthrown. This is the crown of the mind. It does not glitter, yet it outlasts every jewel. It does not command armies, yet it bends the world to its will. It is worn not by kings and princes alone, but by any human being who dares to rise above their own chaos, who dares to govern themselves before seeking to shape the world around them. History teaches us the futility of grasping for power without inner mastery. Psychology shows us the trap of being ruled by desire and fear. The modern world reveals the countless forces eager to exploit a restless mind. But philosophy, timeless, unflinching, offers the truth. True power is internal. And so, the challenge remains. In this age of noise, distraction, and endless struggle for control, who wears the crown of your mind? Is it you or the world around you? When you master your mind, you do not simply survive the storms of existence. You do not merely endure the shifting tides of power or the manipulations of those who seek to rule you. You rise above them. You become unshakable. And in doing so, you discover the deepest truth Machiavelli ever concealed between the lines. When you master your mind, you do not just survive the world, you master it,